And what's happened since the 27th of July, we had 100,000 people on the street. We had a celebration. It wouldn't have gone the way the authorities or the security services or any of them would have wanted it to go. And that was, we have gone from working class. We are now peeling to the middle class. We're now reaching the masses in our movement. We have a larger reach than ever before. And the way they've managed to tarnish us and taint us for a decade has not been successful in the last 6 months. And the reason being, I have an account here on X. I can reach the public myself. So the way they've censored us, as you're now experiencing on your YouTube channel, is they've silenced our voice and then they've told people how to think using their media. It's 27th of July. We have a successful event. The next day, I travel to the border of the UK and I'm arrested under counter-terrorism legislation. What does that mean? That means that as I got in my car and as I travelled through the border, I was detained. I was told it's under Article 7 of the Terrorism Legislation Act, I believe, where they actually read out, and it says, we believe you're in the instigation and preparation of acts of terrorism, so we can now detain you. And both the officers said, well, we don't believe that, but this legislation gives us the power to now do this. So give us your phone. They seize my phone. They can seize all electrical devices. Then they sat me down for 6 hours under interrogation, where you do not have a right to remain silent. Now, this should terrify everyone because these sorts, it's like the Patriot Act in the United States. They bring in this legislation to prohibit terrorism, so legitimate reasons that then take our freedoms away, and then they turn it and use it against citizens. So I'm sitting there as a journalist. I've held a peaceful rally, and here I am for 6 hours being questioned about certain things. One of the questions I was asked is, how do you think you're going to stop the Great Replacement? This is a question from counter-terrorism in a 6-hour interview where I do not have a right to remain silent. When I ask what that means, if you don't answer our questions, we'll charge you under terrorism legislation. So if you do not give us the password to your phone, you'll be charged under terrorism legislation. So I sit there under interview for 6 hours, answer the most absurd questions about why there can't be a two-state solution in Palestine. What's my opinion on that? Wanting to question about who's organised behind the scenes in our movement that we've just held. What are we planning next? These are all legitimate things that have absolutely no business of the British state. But here they are infringing on my rights and our rights, and especially my rights as a journalist, because when they got into then seizing my phone and asking me for the passcode in my phone, at which point I said, well, I'm sorry, you're not having the passcode in my phone. Because I work as a journalist, that's my phone, and I read before they got me into interview, I read their legislation, and they weren't allowed to question me in interview that would do anything that would reveal sources of information for my work as a journalist. So I said, well, by opening my phone, you're going to reveal privileged information between me and my lawyers, because they're aware I've got a full-on legal battle with them now about the film that I've made, Jordan. I don't want to go off on tangents here, but I probably will. We spoke before. I made a decision on the 27th of July. I had 100,000 people watching, almost 1 million online. I made a decision to play a movie that was banned. It was banned for 3 years prior. I had been prohibited from showing evidence to the British public, again, because they wish to control how people think. They had used their media to tell the public that I had lied. I had made a documentary that 3 years prior, I failed. I failed as a journalist. I failed as I'd say, as a father, as an Englishman. It's my job to protect and expose corruption, especially when it comes from the British state. When the British state are weaponising courts, and what you're all witness now in the last 2 weeks is what I've known. They have weaponised the judiciary. Within 7 days, some people were arrested and some people committed a crime, and within 2 or 3 days, it was televised to the British public as they were sent to prison for years for things they'd said on Facebook. What this has been an attempt to is to scare the British public, intimidate them into silence. The reason being, we are on the verge of a cultural revolution in Great Britain. Now, bringing 100,000 people on the street in a peaceful celebration and sending a message to the establishment is certainly not what they want. So what we've witnessed since that day is a full-on attack, and especially against me. And and Jordan, I can go on talking about this, but if it's okay, I will, so that people get the full context of what's happened here. I'm taken in by counter-terrorism. By the time I'm released, and I got questioned about the film that I played. I make an allegation in that film. The film was about, right? This is Silence, which
Silenced, yeah.
The film is called Silence. It's pinned on my Twitter, which is @TRobinsonNewEra. The problem they have they can't stop people viewing or restrict the comments on X because they don't have control of Elon Musk. That is why they're upset with Elon Musk. It's why Elon Musk is now being called a danger to our country. It's why he's now being labelled as far right, as an extremist. All the same labelling they give to us is now what he faces because they don't have control. So at the minute, I think when we spoke before, I was hoping that 10 million people would watch the film. And the reason I was hoping that was because it totally exposes the corruption of the judiciary, the weaponization of the judiciary, and the way the media and all of them conspire together to control a narrative, and the way they destroy anyone who gets in the way of that narrative, which is what I've currently faced. That film is currently on 44 million views. I currently face, as the media have said, that I'm currently on the run. Yeah, that's what they've said, is I'm on the run, and I fled a court case. So I go to leave the country the next day. I'm detained by counter-terrorism. I'm held. They then when I refuse to give my PIN code, I say no. And and I'll give the reason so people understand. As a journalist, I've made a 5-part documentary series called The Rape of Britain. In that, we uncover corrupt police officers. In episode 6, we're about to uncover a corrupt politician in the same town who has allegations of child abuse against him. We have covert recordings of this. Why would they want access to my phone? Which is what I was asking them. Am I going to give you access to my phone when I have my sources of information on there for this? And so people understand my concerns, because they're legitimate concerns. In Rotherham, one of the towns hit by the rape scandal of Muslim men raping young English girls, the police actually deleted evidence. When young girls went in and gave them their underwear, which had the DNA of men on it who had raped them, when they then went back in for the prosecution of the case, the underwear had gone missing. Yeah. In Rochdale, in Telford, in Oldham, in all of these cases, the police worked against the interests of the public. They worked to hide the evidence in these cases, to get rid of evidence and protect the rapists. And not just protect the rapists, but protect the dirty hands of lead police officers and lead government officials who had allowed this rape to continue for a generation. So many of them had dirty hands. So I told the police, why would I give you? These girls have come to me to tell their stories. They trust me, not you. And the reason they do that is because whatever you put on your computer system, and in fact, in episode 5 of our investigation, it was the police who gave the address of our survivor to the Muslim gangs. It was the police who leaked the information to families at the school. It was the police. So no, I'm not about to put the jeopardy or the safety of the survivors or anyone who's given me their trust in confiding in me with information so I can expose it. And that goes for whether it be about corruption of the court cases, the judiciary, or the rape gang. So I told the police in no uncertain terms, you're not going to get a PIN code off of me. And if you want to charge me under terrorism legislation, then you do that. And at which point I was transferred from the port to a police station to be charged. I then had a solicitor, because up until this point, you don't have a right to remain silent under terrorism legislation. I then get a solicitor. We're both told, including my solicitor, that we're about to be prosecuted. I undergo interview where I explain exactly what I'd already said to the police. No, you're not having it. And this is an abuse of police power. Well, the first question to me was, what is your opinion in the terrorism legislation? What is your opinion of the UK right now? And I said, a totalitarian state. And they said, oh, care to explain that? I said, yes, I'm currently sat here under no investigation. You don't believe I've committed any offence. But here I am without a right to remain silent, being quizzed about my legal and lawful activism and journalism, and under terrorism legislation. This is a totalitarian state. This stinks of nothing more. This exposes nothing more than a totalitarian state. So I went through all of this, and then when it gets to, I undergo my interview, and I'm sat in my cell for 5 or 6 hours, and I don't get charged. So I haven't yet been charged. So something happened between this and this for them to make a decision, bail him. And that's what they've done. But they took my phone. They took my phone to download every bit of data. This is the government and the state receiving every bit of data off of my phone to do with my work, my activism. Even after I told them I'm a journalist, that's my work phone. But they've still gone in. So this is what happens on the 28th of July. I'm then released. I'm released on the 28th of July at 11 p.m. I don't have a phone, but I continue to make my way where I was going. I drive through France. By the time I actually get a phone in Spain, by the time I get a 16 or 18 hour drive, I'm then informed when I get online that there's been a murder of young girls in Southport in the north of England, where a man has gone in and he's butchered lots of children in Southport. That's all that was given to us at that time. Okay. Now, the alarming bell for me, not the alarming bell, but whether this is conspiracy or not, because this proves it is that evening, there was a vigil, or the evening after. There's a vigil for all the children who have been killed. Southport is a close-knit working class community, and all of the families have come out and they're there. And so people can understand what were they going through in this community. A few days later, I spoke to one of the uncles of these children who were attacked. His 7-year-old niece, the man entered the building, he grabbed her by the hair, he stabbed her in the face, he stabbed her and took her bicep off, and he stabbed her in the body. Then he dropped her. Then he walked in and he continued butchering. Now, this one family and the uncle I spoke to, that was his niece. The goddaughter on the other side of the family was 9 years old and she was dead after being stabbed 7 times. So so you can imagine the anguish, the anger from this community that was going on. They've all come out to hold a vigil, and around the corner from the vigil, a man of Arab appearance has been detained with another big knife and a balaclava. So word has quickly spread amongst the vigil that there's another planned attack on the community. That has boiled over into anger, into frustration, and into clashes with the police. Now, I didn't organise this. I hadn't even had a comment on it at this point. Yeah? But that night, when riots started ensuing by the British public, not by any organised group, the police come out and made a statement saying it was members of the English Defence League. Now, as soon as I heard that, so your viewers and listeners understand, I formed the English Defence League in 2009. It ended in 2015. That's a decade. There's not been an English Defence League for a decade. There's no organisation, there's no membership, there's no meetings, there's nothing. It's unheard of. Okay, it's unheard of. But by blaming, rather than I was trying to work out why they were doing this, and then I've received, it's probably to land it on my feet, yeah, so they can tarnish me with the. If they have to accept, why are people rioting on the streets of Southport? It's the British public. It's not an organised far right group. But by straight away labelling these British people as far right, they don't have to discuss why they're angry.
I'm taking 4 of my esteemed colleagues and you across the world.